So today we've shown Company Heroes 2, the new look, the first look really at Company Heroes 2, and what we've done to evolve many parts of the game from Company Heroes 1 and bring new experiences, a new story, and a new front of the war. What makes the Eastern Front different from previous titles is that it's an expansive war. It's a war of 1941 all the way to 1945. Company of Heroes encompassed, I believe, including expansion packs, 4 months of 1944. And so with the Eastern Front, we have a whole breadth of tactical battles to pull from and inspire everything from the gameplay to the visuals to the tonal field differences that make up Company Heroes 2. Well, Company Heroes 2 took a long time to bring to market because it takes a long time to make a Company Heroes game because of the level of quality that we aspire towards. We have to find something that inspires us in terms of fiction, which we found in the Eastern Front and the stories to tell there. And we have to come up with the gameplay and expanding on Company Heroes 1. And that takes time. That takes technology like Essence Engine 3. And that takes development time and developers. Essence Engine 3 can pull off a variety of things. Everything from visuals to gameplay. Our True Sight line of sight system, which is a dynamic line of sight system that changes as you're going through battles dynamically. Things get destroyed, you're walking through trees, it's going to change what you can and can't see, all the way to the visuals. The animations of troops we're able to amp up and have more of, and better animations. Things like snow and environmental effects, they actually let us be gameplay oriented. They can actually affect the movement of troops as they trudge through the snow. So it's not just a visual thing of how great they look, it affects the gameplay, it affects the pathing. And of course, the effects and the visual presentation layer of things like burning houses. They're going to burn down to the ground over time. They're going to have fantastic fire effects and smoke effects. So what makes the Red Army a unique addition to Company Heroes 2 is that fundamentally they were a very different army from the other armies in the war. The Allies entered the war generally very late in World War II in comparison to the Soviet army. They were invaded in 1941. So you get a much bigger span of time, and over that span of time you have differences in the way they were commanded all the way down to technology. So the technology in 1941 from the Soviet side paled in comparison in general to the Third Reich and the invading army. So all the way from 1941 until 1945, you saw the Soviets and the Third Reich kind of exchange hands as in who had technological advances that brought them new things to the battle. And that's something we're going to be portraying in the game. Things like the T-34, and then of course as it enters the war, and you'll have other units later in the game, say like the Su-76, that make an appearance and make an impact in the battle, which affects the timeline of the war and how those battles play out. The German army is not exactly the same. The German army is the Ostheer, I believe that's how it's pronounced. And the Ostheer, of course, because it's not 1944 like Company Heroes 1, it's 1941. And so they have a different technology than the 1944 Germans would have had, of course, in the beginning of the campaign. So in the campaign, the player will be following basically the Red Army and their struggles from being invaded in 1941 all the way to 1945. And they're doing this through a soldier that later turned to be a journalist. And so he's somebody who actually got to see from the beginning of the war all the way to the end, from battles across the span of World War II in the Eastern Front, which is actually a unique thing. There were not necessarily armies that lasted or even lived through the entire expanse of the war. And of course, there were battles going on at the same time in 2 places across this very big battlefield. So this is kind of a unique aspect that we really needed in order to tell the story of the campaign. And it's something that lets us bring the flavor of things that were happening in 1941 when the Soviet army was really kind of getting their tails kicked by the Wehrmacht, all the way to 1945 when they're barreling down the throat of the Germans as they move through Seelow Heights and the suburbs of Berlin. So I can't talk too much about multiplayer, but I can say that supply line is still an important feature in Company Heroes 2, and the idea of denying territory and denying supply from your enemy will be an important part of gameplay. You can always sneak around behind their captured territories, their captured victory points, and deny the supply that's granting them. So Company Heroes 2 is a PC game that will be released in 2013.